Chapter 26, Terminating the Case. There are many reasons why cases are closed. The client and case manager agree that the client is ready to move on, and the problems have been resolved. Maybe the client dies or moves away. If the client moves and requests it, the client's records can be transferred to another agency in another location. Maybe the funding source will no longer finance services. If you and your client have not completed your work, look for other options for the client, such as maybe community support groups. It is unethical to just drop the client even if they don't have any funding. Maybe the client no longer wants the services. Some clients are not satisfied, maybe they became bored, or they're overcome with ambivalence. You cannot find the client. Sometimes clients disappear, maybe to indicate that they're just not interested in services at this time. When a client drops out of services and disappears, it is important to do your follow-up attempts to the client. Call their cell phone. Leave messages if you have a release of information. Write a letter to outreach the client. Make sure that your case progress notes and your discharge summary reflects your attempts to contact the client that has dropped out and disappears. When the client is dissatisfied with the services, sit down and learn why they are not pleased. This will help with improvements for the future, or perhaps for other clients. You may be able to learn something about yourself or the agency that needs to change. When you cannot find the client, it is important to document, as mentioned earlier, your attempts to reach the client in the chart. You don't need to call the police or search endlessly for the client. Usually send a termination letter and give the client a heads up that their case is closing, giving them a chance to return if they choose to. This is what I want to see in the discharge session demonstration on video number 5. A successful termination, the final exit interview. Of course, your case may not be successful, and that's fine. But the client and you should have a chance to meet with you and discuss termination. Recognize their feelings and respond empathically. Some clients have anxiety about leaving treatment and therapy, so acknowledging that will be important. Perhaps the client did not terminate in a satisfactory manner, and so again recognizing the feelings that they have and respond empathically. Use the interview to summarize the reasons for termination. Whether it is successful or unsuccessful, the client needs to know why they are being discharged. Review the accomplishments that they did have and also honestly discuss the continued needs for the client. Gather feedback and always welcome the client to return in the future. There should be a sense of reassurance during the final interview that the client is not being cut off or dumped or abandoned. See the grading rubric for video number 5 on the termination session. Termination documentation. At the end of closing the case, there will be a final interview with a progress note. You need a discharge letter, so be sure to get forwarding address to send the letter. A copy of the letter will remain in the client's file. There's a sample letter on page 443. And discharge summary form. You will be handing in the discharge letter and the discharge summary form that you will fill out on your client. Upload these into the module. Look at the discharge summary form and you will see all of these elements on the form. Don't skimp on filling out the discharge summary. Since the client is gone, some staff don't think that this form is important and they just rush through it to get it done. However, the discharge summary form is very important. It should summarize the most important points of what took place during the time when you were working together with this client. The discharge summary will potentially be seen by other professionals who work with the individual in the future. Or at least it will be seen by your supervisor. So it's a good way for you to point out the great work that you did. A discharge summary is a marketing tool for your agency and your work with the individual. It does contain specific and useful information. So let's say the client was discharged unsuccessfully. By quickly, let's say when the client comes back, by quickly looking at the previous discharge summary, you'll be able to know what stage of change, what the recommendations were at the last time when the client left the agency. So it's very specific and useful information on a discharge summary form. The letter. See the sample letter on page 443 in your textbook. Individualize your letter. Be positive and hopeful while always inviting the client to contact you or the agency in the future should the need arise. If this was an unsuccessful case, you would still write a letter to the client. You would include referrals for further services. Sometimes agencies have a form letter that is sent to the client, giving them a timeline in which to return prior to closing the case officially. It is now time to say goodbye. You have learned everything you need to know about case management and treatment. Well, at least enough to start your internship. Case management is defined as assessment, planning, linking, and monitoring. You may remember this from the very first week. I have enjoyed working with all of you and wish you the best in your future endeavors.